All right, welcome to the T Row Shows. Your host Keith. With this is the part 5 series of the Narrow Way. I've been getting some nice feedback from people. I do appreciate that that they are enjoying this, or can't wait till the next one comes in. But keep in mind, I would rather you guys go down the narrow way yourself. I'm just showing you what is there, so it's not such a creepy or mysterious thing, a scary thing for you. It's actually quite fun to go down the narrow way after you get through a lot of the things that you need to face. Now, a lot of people, and I'm going to tell you about the narrow way that is actually narrow. I'll get to that in here in a few minutes. A lot of people don't like seeing themselves. And if you bring something out in them that's just ugly, what they normally do is they will get mad and angry and walk away. They get all offended. And then they start trying to hide their their deception, and they start downtrodden you. Okay, so they'll come back and start making stuff up about you because they don't want to face what's in themselves. And in Revelations, our Father in heaven calls those people cowards. They're just cowards. They can't face what's inside of them, and that's a coward. Brave is being able to see things in yourself and face it. And so for the first, I guess maybe was it Jen, 3 to 5 months, maybe you start you start thinking you're being attacked because you've turned to Jesus and you
Oh,
believe. Go
yeah, it's
ahead.
like a war for that first 6 or 7 months within
Yeah,
yourself.
and you're thinking you're being attacked by demons, but guess what really is happening, folks? You are being shown who you are, and man, does that offend people. They believe it offends their commerce. They believe that people, the way they see them, you will end up getting thrown out of church. Am I correct there?
Yep, that's
You
exactly what happens.
you start getting thrown out of church. You're leaving Babylon, so it's mainstream. So what they do is they start changing your reputation. So it's not really a good reputation anymore because your standing is changing. Everything is beginning to change about your life. You're cleaning your life up. You don't get along with porn addicts because you're no longer talking, you're no longer watching porn. You don't get along with the smokers because you're no longer smoking. I smoked for 36 years, quit about 4 years ago. Best move I ever made. I can breathe. I can walk upstairs without dying or slowly or getting close to death. I can, I don't have to worry about my heart going like that when I'm smoking. You don't have to hear the clicking of the lighter on T row and me, sucking on cigarettes. Okay. All that's gone. Your teeth turn white and you don't stink anymore. Man, you smell like feet when you're smoking. And no matter if you go and get a shower, you come out, you're already smoking again. So you're going to smell like cigarettes and not the shower. Horrible habit. Um, that habit has gone up so high anymore. People just keep smoking because they're fighting the state, telling them what to do. And really, it's an internal fight with you. They explain what addiction is to you. This is how it happens and how it works. I'll get to that in just a second. I'll get to the other part in just a second, the marriage and all that. Um, Addiction is very simple. It's a very simple thing. Once you understand it, then you realize, man, I've been fooled all this time. What happens is that the demons in your lifetime will convince you that you like smoking. They will convince you that you like drinking. They will convince you that you like all these things. And you ask anybody that's smoking, they'll say, "Man, I'm a slave to this," or they say, "I I just gave up. I just keep smoking. And a lot of them really want to quit. They want to stop. And that's really nothing to do with money or anything like that. And what happens is they convince you, demons do this, they convince you that that cigarette is a part of your identity. So that if you give it up, you're actually giving up a part of yourself. But what's really going on is, and you can't do this without the set apart spirit. Set apart spirit is your strength, like through the narrow way and everywhere else. That's the set apart spirit. He's your strength, and he gives you that power to overcome addiction, overcome all these things. Okay, and eventually, it's like porn will become disgusting. It's not a part of you anymore. Drinking, not a part of you anymore. Smoking weed or crack, just it's not a part of you. What it is it's a delusion that you're in, that you actually like these things. And in essence, you really don't. So by giving it up, you think you're giving up your identity. Well, I'm a smoker. Okay, that's the brand. I'm a smoker. Or I'm this. Oh, you're a smoker, huh? Nobody shamed me into it. Nobody did anything or talked me into it. I decided that I wanted to quit and didn't want to be, I didn't want that anymore. And so I quit. My mind quit first. And then my body, it's going to be a fight. And my body resisted. And I didn't do it all at once. It took me about a month or two as I started slowing down with one less cigarette per day, or it could be 2 days, depends. If I was getting too bad, I would go back up again, then go back down. Okay. And once I got down to 10 cigarettes a day, I just said, all right, that's enough. This is ridiculous. And after 3 days, the third day in the afternoon, 3 to 5 was the worst time in that trying to quit. And it was so bad that I told myself, I didn't know how long it was going to last. Excuse me. And I told myself, I said, I want to remember this, because if I ever think I want to go back to cigarettes, I want to know what it's like. And I want my body to remember how bad it is to quit. And if I hadn't had the set apart spirit poured into me, I would have never been able to do it. And you won't go back. You don't want to go back. That's the nice thing about it. I call it quitting by set apart spirit, because Chantix doesn't work. You will go back after Chantix, but the set apart spirit gives you that strength to stay. Okay, and I'm not saying that you won't have, your body will have these memories. But that was only like the first 2 or 3 years. I haven't felt one in a very long time, where your body believes it needs or likes a cigarette or wants it. That only lasts about 2-3 minutes, and then it goes away. Mostly cigarettes stink really bad. You're able to taste your food again. You'll gain a little weight. That's no problem. I'd rather have weight gain than smoking, because your food tastes good. You start, you want to eat everything just because it tastes good. And you don't have that yellow on your teeth. You just get you some baking soda and brush your teeth with that. It's bad taste, so you might want to go with toothpaste afterwards and mouthwash. But it does scrub your teeth down, and your teeth are yellow, or I'm sorry, no longer yellow. It's really nice. It's nice not smoking. I did it for 37 years. I think it's 36 or 37 years. And I don't miss it a bit. Believe me. So that being said, these are the things you start doing to clean your life up. Okay, you got to clean your mind. You got to want a clean mind, clean heart, clean being. Okay, and that's where you're headed. Now, when you have that, your mind clears up. It's not so noisy in there. Wouldn't you say that was true, Jen? Just not so noisy.
Yeah, there was a calm all of a sudden. It was nice.
Calm doesn't feel like a commercial in your head all the time.
Or there's like multiple versions of you in your head.
Okay. So all that goes away, and you're able to think clearly, and you're able to see things and see this whole world in a completely different light. Because the narrow way is about truth. It's not about right and wrong. It's about truth. And I said this before, and the message didn't come out, I don't think, well enough. And the main message that you have on the narrow way is, first of all, the type of love you have. That's the love issue. And how you treat each other. And people, I mean, back in the day, I used to be a hothead. I was angry all the time. Um, it was just a mess. I was angry for a lot of different reasons. So whoever I was angry with, I'm not saying that who was right and wrong in the argument. The only thing I can say is that I apologize for being uh if being angry with people and that kind of thing. I shouldn't be that way. I don't think anybody else should be that way either. But I'm not going to start pushing that on people. You're going to have to decide that for yourself. Okay? Because the narrow way is not about it's not even the 10 steps making amends. It's correcting the way you are. It's changing you to be more like Jesus, to be more giving and stop worrying about who's taking, just to be more like him. And that's really what it's about. You have to be nice, or not nice to people, but because people, sometimes they're going to get on your nerves. I get that. And some people deserve to be put in place. And that's called agape love. So it's not an abusive thing through agape. It's abusive. It's if it's filio, because you're just as bad as everybody else. So you're just you're just trying to be on your high horse. We used to call it. Okay.
It's a needed affliction to humble someone or yourself.
The narrow way.
Yes.
I can agree with that. That's absolutely correct, because you do become afflicted. You go through things. You start seeing things that about yourself that you thought you were big and bad, and you find out you're not big and bad. It's not what's going to happen. That you're going to be afflicted by that, and when you're afflicted by this is what you called humbled. So you become humbled. And all this basically happens before you come to the marriage ceremony. Okay. Now, when I first heard about the marriage ceremony, I did the same thing probably that every other man does, and you kind of cringe a little bit. You're like, what? I'm going to go marry Jesus? What's that all about? What's going on here? Or is this real? Come on, man. Yes, it's real. Okay. Now I stood up and I started walking in. I was walking upstairs, and before I got to the stairs, I felt like my spirit was being crushed in the middle, like from side to side, in the middle, really thin, and then it back out again. Did you ever feel that?
Only when I went through that very narrow pathway right before seeing heaven for like one of the first times that was the only time I really felt what you're describing.
Right. It only happened to me once too.
Huh.
But I went back and I go, wait a minute, what was that? So I walked backwards a couple of steps and it did it again. And then it popped back out and I was where I was before on the narrow way. And then it was back again. Okay, then I went forward, and then I was crushed again, and then back out again. And I did it like 2 or 3 times until someone yelled at me. They said, Keith, if you do that one more time, I'm leaving you on the other side. I said, okay. Okay. So I walked forward and figured out it was an angel that was yelling at me, because I was just kind of playing with it. I thought, wow, that is kind of cool, you know? And I ended up in a field. Now, behind me was a big white wall, because I looked back and I said, what was that? And it was literally a crack in the wall I was walking through. And what I mean by a crack in the wall, that's what I mean. It's a crack in the wall. And because I said, wow, when you guys said narrow, I didn't know that it really meant narrow. Okay. So I walked through that, and I'm standing in the field, and the angel sounded nervous and at haste. In other words, he says, okay, what I want you to do is stand here. You stand here, don't move, don't do anything. And he acted like everything was freaking out. And he was freaking out. And what I believe he was freaking out about is because about 2 or 3 hours later, our Father in heaven showed up, and Jesus was there too. So the angel was really nervous. They need to be prepared and have everything done so nothing wastes our Father's time. Okay. So I'm standing there, and then Jesus is like right in front of me, but to my right. And we're both kind of looking, if you're going to look north, we're looking northwest. Okay. So we're both kind of done that way, but he's just right next to me, about 2 feet away from me. And the Father is just right in the, and before us. Okay. And all you're seeing is, you could tell he's there, you can feel him, and then he's speaking. You don't really see a great light or anything. He's just speaking. And he looks at me, and I get on my knees. Okay. And Jesus is on his knees too. And I said, he said to me, I didn't say anything to him. He said to me, he says, you are here, and you've been through this part of the narrow way. You've been to this narrow way. He said, are you here voluntarily? I said, yes. And he says, has my son done anything to you that this wasn't done by a voluntary act on your part? In other words, did you volunteer and consent to everything that has been done since you've been on the narrow way? And I said, yes. I said, everything I've done, I've consented to. Uh, uh, your son has not forced me into anything. I'm here voluntarily. And he says, okay, do you agree to uphold this, the new covenant, where you love your Father with all your heart, mind, and being, and that you love your neighbor as yourself? And I said, yes. And he said, okay. He says, now rise. And I looked at him and I said, we will serve you, meaning Jesus and I will serve you forever. And he said, okay, this is it. That's all the marriage is. It's not like a having to hold and all that kind of thing. It's a contract. Do you agree with this? Do you agree to serve with your brother? Because he turned around and said, my brother. And do you agree to all that? I said, yeah, that's it. So they left. So I was there for about another 3 or 4 days. I was in a field with that big rock behind me. It was a big wall. And I was in the field, and then another angel came to get me. Okay. And what I mean by that is, I'm in 2 places at once. I would be sitting there talking to you, and then that other part of me is sitting in heaven, the internal part that most people don't see. They don't understand it. They have it. The veil is still there. Now, what I mean by the veil is that you have the internal heart of hearts, and then you have your heart, well, you know, how you feel. Most people call it your subconscious. And then you have your outer heart, which is, this is me talking to you now. Okay. So what he does is he lifts the veil so that you can see into your heart. And what you will see is that I am that needs to die. But you can't see it until Jesus shows you this. The veil's there. So I'm going to sit here and talk to you, and you're thinking, okay, this guy's freaking whacked up. This must be another flat earther or something like that. Okay. Some craziness. And you know what? I don't blame you. I don't blame you to look at me like that. I get that. Okay. I get how you feel, because if you can't see something and you've never seen it, and it's an idea that you've never known your entire life, then of course you're gonna feel that way. Okay. And so once that I am is out of you, and I think I've already talked about this, you go to hell and all that. But this is later. Okay. The marriage is later. And believe it or not, after that, about 3 or 4 days, you were introduced to all the angels. And that is probably the most amazing thing that you'll ever see, because you know that all the angels you're looking at did not side with the devil. There's 2/3 of them there. Those were the ones that were loyal to our Father in heaven. And I said to them, I'm looking at this and it's magnificent. You're talking about the highest of highs of mountains, miles high. It's unbelievable. And everything is perfect, you know, and beautiful. They live in a very beautiful place. A lot of water, a lot of waterfalls. They all have they all have white robes on, that kind of thing. Extremely powerful beings. And I said to them, because I had already been through part of this on the narrow way, where our Father in heaven showed me what it was like to witness the devil doing what he was doing to the children, to our Father's children. Basically, he stole them. And that was you could feel our Father in heaven will share with you what that felt like and what he actually felt. It's a very, it's a hard story to listen to and feel at the same time, because of how he is, because he loves you more than you could ever imagine someone loving you. And he wants you there with him. And you need to stop treating each other like crap. That's one of his main messages. Stop doing that. And he doesn't judge you that you may go to hell. You choose to go to hell. That's the deception that you're under, believing that on Judgment Day, he sends you to hell, when in fact, you choose to go. That's hard to explain unless you see it, unless you feel it. So you need to get on the narrow way to understand why your Father does what he does, because they explain it to you. They'll also show you the beginning of time, before time happened. They'll show you all those things. And there's no way a scientist can ever figure it out. They're going to be doing this forever and ever, spending stupid money to go find Mars, to go see, this happen or that happen or whatever they're doing. Okay. So you have to realize there's a purpose for this. And when you start seeing it, then you start seeing the whole world in a different place. Why is it taking so long for Jesus to come back? That's the question. Okay. Why? Because there's more souls to try. There's more souls that try themselves. What they're doing is they're waiting for everybody's last breath, to see who's going to turn to our Father in heaven and Jesus and who is not. And once that's done, that's the time. I don't know when. Nobody knows when. But that's what I've noticed when I'm sitting there and waiting, that you're being introduced to the angels. And so what I said to them was, thank you for not rebelling against our Father and hurting him like the third of the angels did. And I don't think they really expected that. I think what they expected was some little bratty kid, okay, to come up and, hi, I'm in charge, screw you type deal. I'm in charge. You can't mess with me anymore. Ha, ha, ha. Well, by the time that you're at that level and you're at that power, you don't feel that way. I love them very much so. The reason why I do is because our Father in heaven changed my heart. He took the filio out of me and put in agape. I was bestowed agape. Now, this is quite a long story because it comes into basically 4 years. 4 years from start to finish. Not to finish. It's like I'm still actually going through it. Sorry about that. Did not mean to mislead you in that direction. So you need to realize that this is going to change your life, and it becomes a way of life. And that is when, in fact, you are walking in the faith of Jesus. It's different from faith in Jesus. Okay, to have faith in him, yes, he's an incredible man. But to have the faith of Jesus is different, which means that you are conforming to the rules of agape love. You're experiencing the perfect condition of it. You're experiencing the warmth of it, and this is your faith. Is there anything else you would like to add on this particular part, Jen?
Well, just a minute ago, you were talking about his death and resurrection, and it benefiting all of us. Like it was for us. He died for us. Well, there's a verse on that kind of helps you understand it better. Okay, you're saying more how it's the mind, like people need to accept it. They're not accepting what he's done, what he's offering life. And this verse, it says, for the love of Messiah compels us, having judged this, that if one died for all, then all died. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised. So it's saying right there that he died for everyone. They just need to realize that, accept it, and go down that path and be convinced of it. Like you were saying regarding like quit smoking, you have to convince your mind and agree to it. This is it's the truth. There's no other reality.
This brings that brings us into letting yourself go. In other words, the self that people know now was influenced by filio, a love that you thought you had. It was influenced by the world. What do you call that? Babylon. It was influenced by constant barraging of sex and sexual images every day, whether it comes from man or woman, really doesn't matter. It's constant. We have constant advertisements of that. But really what happens is that you're no longer affected by those things. So that person that was affected or formed by the influence of the world and the influence of Babylon and sex and everything else has to die. The same way that the Israelites all had to die off before the next generation could go into Israel, the land of Israel. Okay, that trash needs to go away. That trash is not invited into heaven. So you need to be more like Jesus, so that other person dies off. Your personality is redeveloped. You react to things differently. You think of things differently. You don't want to get into wars and fighting. You don't want to get into abusing other people. Highly intolerant of this garbage that's going on in the country today. This sexual immorality. I'm just going to call it that, because that's essentially what it is. It doesn't matter what kind it is. It just is. I spent about 30 years of my life trying to help this country that has become a hideous country of sexual immorality. I mean, you have a so-called president right in front of everybody sniffing a kid, a little baby, and nobody says a word. When you started allowing this sexual immorality into the schools and into the communities and everything else, you became just as guilty. Doesn't matter if you're involved in it or not. Okay? That's the way it is. And you need to get out of there. And if you're going to repent, you need to truly repent. These are the rules of getting on the narrow way. You truly have to leave Babylon, and you truly have to repent. You can't just say, oh, yeah, I won't do that anymore. And then in the back room, I'm going to go do that again. If it were up to me, I'd have every porn site taken down in a heartbeat. They could sue me all they wanted for First Amendment crap, but really all they are is drug dealers. That's what they truly are. They're just handing out something that's 10 times worse than cocaine. 10 times worse. And believe it or not, I really feel that way. And you do once you're on the narrow way and you get all this cleaned up. Now, the only way you can do that is you can't do it on your own. You have to let Jesus wash your feet. You have to let him wash you, because you can't wash yourself. You can't clean up yourself. There's no earning the narrow way. There's no earning salvation. It has to be a gift, because you can't pay for it. You're not going to be able to go through what he went through to pay for that. You've already sinned once. Done. It's over. If you've lied, if you've thought dirty thoughts, you've broken all the rules. Okay? And the relationship that you have with your Father in heaven is completely different. Once you have made it to that marriage, you've already received your agape love. He has already entered into your internal heart of hearts. And that's when you get into the narrow way. You go directly through the narrow way, and there you go to your ceremony. It's an agreement to abide by the new covenant. That's all it is. So don't get creeped out thinking you're going to be marrying a dude. That's not what really happens. And I hope that puts a lot of guys to rest and go, oh yeah, well, that makes sense. Because you're thinking, man, I'm trying to get out of this in Babylon, and here I'm going, it looks like I'm going right back in. And I'm just being very honest of all the thoughts that I had when I was hearing about it. those are the real thoughts you have, and it's a really misinterpretation at your own, your own peril. So trust me, if you don't want to, I thought all the same things. Okay. So um I'm I'm older and I'm very like women. So you know what I'm saying? So that's not, uh you're married, you don't fool around, you don't think all those stuff, you move on. I'm very people call it old fashioned, but really that's what we all need to be. Okay. And the thought process is the hardest part. The thought process, the changing the way you think. And that's basically all done supernaturally. Everything is done supernaturally. You cannot do any of this on your own. You can't change yourself. You can't do all these things. All of it's done supernaturally. And you will have the power to do it. As long as they have your consent, you will change into what they want you to be. This takes time. You have to be very, very patient, extremely patient. So please look forward to that marriage and that ceremony, those agreements. And everything has become contracts. It's no longer oh, well, this is my inheritance because this is who we are. I'm telling you right now, and I'm going to get really agape with you. Nobody gives a crap who you are. Nobody cares who you are because right now you are at the enemy of your own Father in heaven and you don't know it because the veil hasn't been lifted from you. You're still under a delusion thinking that, oh, well, I'm a child of God. Why would he do that to his own children? Well, right now, the devil changed you into a beast of the field. That's why, because you're the beast of the field and you're his enemy because you're with the adversary and you don't know it. The veil has not been lifted from your eyes. Because why? Because you think stupidly, the same way I did, is that why would I do that? I'm not his enemy. And found out I was. So the reason why I'm telling you this is that you need to be on the narrow way under this constant prayer and constant and concentration. You need to be on the narrow way with the attitude of reconciliation. You are there to make peace with your father. You're the prodigal son. You want to go back into his home and his house, and you're not in any position to make any demands. Everything that you're there under is complete mercy. He has perpetual mercy for people that are on the narrow way, and he has perpetual grace for people that are on the narrow way. Those that are not on the narrow way and are not doing what they're told, you do not get grace. I know you're going to go ask a preacher this is, oh no, we're all under grace, and then they'll start asking other things, well, what did he say? What did he do this to overcome his lies? Because the men are lying to you, the preachers are lying to you. Priests are lying more today than any time. Okay, so these are things you have to think about, and these are experiences that you have on the narrow way. Anything else that we need to cover before we end this?
No, I think that was a lot
Enough
of
to
information.
overwhelm?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thanks for listening. We will go over some other things just after because you end up getting a seat and you end up having a name that's engraved that comes from the Father because you didn't have a name. You were never given one. And then it goes from there. It's amazing trip, folks. And I would highly suggest it for anybody, because I definitely do not want to see people in hell. I don't want to see that. You don't wish that on your worst enemy. I'm not kidding. That is, you're never getting out of there. This is it. If you die without seeking Jesus, that's it. If you ignore the narrow way, that's it. It's over. You will burn forever. And they're not kidding. No one's kidding. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just telling you the way it is. Under agape love, it's truth. Truth and lies, not right and wrong. Okay? So remember that. We're not going to speak in truth and lies. It's not about right and wrong. I'm sorry. We're going to speak in truth and lies. I'm sorry. And it's not about right and wrong. No matter who's right or who's wrong, doesn't matter. That's just a perpetual argument under the tree of good and evil to keep you busy until your last breath. There are millions upon millions of people that choose to go to hell every day. Someone is always dying. And you have 6 billion people or 7 billion people. Someone's choosing to go to hell. So keep that in mind. I don't want to see that. Even the worst enemies I've ever had, people that I thought were just dog crap on my shoe at one time, I wouldn't wish them to go, because it's a horrible, horrible place. Okay? And it smells and it's horrible. Go listen to some people that have been there on YouTube. Put in "I've been to hell" and listen to their descriptions. I didn't have such an experience as they did. Mine was within about 20 minutes. But they had a horrific experiences. Okay. So thanks for listening to the T Rose Show. I hope this helps you on your road to the narrow way, or on the narrow way. Thank you for listening.